All right, so good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Torah Studies. This week's Torah portion is Emor. Emor is the name of the Torah portion, and it falls in the middle, in the midst of a bunch of double portions in years that there are double portions. Yeah, 4.6, okay. It talks about various things. There are laws and rules and regulations related to the Kohanim. The priests that serve in the Mishkan, in the sanctuary, in the temple. And then the second half of the Torah portion talks about the Jewish holidays, but in a very specific context. So I feel like it's sometimes very helpful to take a half a step back and understand kind of like the bigger picture. So as you know, there are 5 books of the Torah, hence the phrase 5 books of Moses, right? It would be very misleading if there were more or less of the of the books. There are 5 books of Moses, the third of which is called in Hebrew Vayikra, and in English it's called Leviticus. And the reason why in English it's called Leviticus is because it primarily contains instructions to the tribe of Levi, hence Leviticus. Like Spartacus would contain commandments to the tribe of Sparta, and Leviticus, if that were a thing, Leviticus contains commandments specifically related to the tribe of Levi, Shevet Levi, i.e. the Levites. But to be clear, the tribe of Levi included both what we would call Levites as well as Kohanim, priests. So both the Kohanim and Leviim, priests and Levites, are all part of the tribe of Levi. And that's a little confusing, but it just is what it is. Because the Kohanim come from the progeny of Aaron, or the priests come from the line of Aaron, and the Levites come from the line of Moses. They were brothers, both from the tribe of Levi, and here we are. So if you want to think about the book of Leviticus, kind of on a thematic level, the theme is very clear. It's about the Mishkan, the tabernacle. It's about the Kohanim. It's about the Levim. It's about stuff in the sacrifices, etc., brought in the Mishkan, brought in the Mikdash, in the sanctuary, and in the temple. Now, with that in mind, I think I mentioned before, the second half of this week's Torah portion, is talking about the holidays. But if you think about holidays in the context of Leviticus, what do you think the focus will be on? The sacrifices. Excellent. Because there are many things you could discuss, many things you could talk about when it comes to a holiday. You could talk about the observances, you could talk about the customs, you could talk about, what foods we eat and other things and the prohibitions of work. But the primary focus when you talk about the holidays in the book of Leviticus will be on which offerings are brought on those very special days. Now, to be clear, there are daily offerings that were brought in the temple of old every single day, hence the term daily offerings, right? There was the Karban Tamid, which means the consistent or continual offering, brought every morning and every afternoon. No matter what, there was an offering brought every single day. There were private offerings that were brought for various reasons, either Thanksgiving or for atonement or for sin, whatever it was, different offerings were brought. But on the holidays, there were special offerings that were brought due to the fact that it was a holiday and a special day. So the Torah, in this week's Torah portion, goes through all the holidays and lists the specified sacrifices that were to be brought on those holidays. Just as a quick overview, we're going to read this inside, but as a quick overview, what are the holidays? So we have, if we start from Passover, the birth of the Jewish nation, the exodus from Egypt. So we have, what are the holidays? We have Pesach. What's the next one? Shavuos. Good. Before that, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. Five holidays. I know we say Shalosh Regalim, the 3 holidays, pilgrimage holidays. Those do not include Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but certainly those are major holidays, biblical holidays, and thus they are in the Torah as well. So we have, again, Passover and Pesach. We have Shavuot. We have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and of course Sukkot. There is one additional mention of the Omer. the Omer offering that's brought on the second day of Passover, and the counting of the Omer, 7 weeks that we count, that leads to the holiday of Shavuot. So that is also mentioned. So now we are at the time of our conversation where we're going to read these verses inside. The way I'm going to do it, and this is because it's a very long reading and it includes multiple parts. I will do this. I will read this inside, and then we'll pick it up from there. So if you have a booklet or if you have a book, we're on page number 56, text 1A. So here we're going to have, I think, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E. You have a series of texts that are excerpts from this very long section of this week's Torah portion, the second half of the Parsha, which talks about the holidays and their requisite offerings. All right, so let us jump into this. I'm going to read text 1A. These are God's appointed holy days, holy occasions, which you shall designate in their appointed time. Okay, so the first thing we encounter is the fact that these are appointed days and they are in their appointed time. So there's something about the fact that God designates these days as very special. They're appointed, they're set. In the Hebrew, they're called moed. If you ever hear the term moed being used for holiday, moed does not mean holiday per se. It means appointed, designated day. So the holidays are days that God has determined to be special. And the number one, or the first, not number one, we're not ranking, but the first holiday that has a mention is verse 5. In the first month, on the 14th of the month, in the afternoon, you shall sacrifice the Passover offering to God. And you see right away in the context of Passover, what's the first thing that's mentioned? The offering and the sacrifice, right? As we said before, in Leviticus, certainly the framing of the holidays is vis-a-vis their offerings. And on the 15th, verse 6, the 15th day of that month is the festival of unleavened cakes to God. You shall eat unleavened cakes for a 7-day period. So we have a mention of matzah and the duration of the holiday. And in verse 7, on the first day of this Passover, there shall be a holy occasion for you. You shall not perform any work of labor. And you shall bring a fire offering, back to the sacrifices. You shall bring a fire offering to God for a 7-day period. On the 7th day, there shall be a holy occasion. You shall not perform any work of labor. And thus, by the way, in case you're wondering how the holidays and why the holidays are structured as they are, with first and last day or days, the holiday in the middle is called Chol HaMoed, where you're allowed to perform work. That's because, as you saw in verse 7, it says on the first day, you shall not perform work. And in verse 8, it says on the 7th day, you shall not perform any work or labor. That tells us that it's the first and the last day of the holiday where work is prohibited. The middle days are also holiday days, but they don't have the prohibition of work. With me? I'm just pointing out something that's that should be pretty clear from the text. Now, the next next group of a series of texts, text 1b. And God spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel. This is literally the next verse. Next verses. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come to the land which I am giving you, that means Israel, and you reap its harvest, you shall bring to the Kohen an omer. An omer is an amount. I don't know. I don't remember exactly how much it is, but it's an amount. You should bring to the Kohen an omer of the beginning of your reaping. And this refers specifically to barley. Verse 15. And from the morrow of the rest day, that means the day after the first day of Passover, from the day you bring the omer as a wave offering, which is on day 2 of Passover, you shall count for yourselves 7 weeks. We know this as the counting of the omer. You bring the omer. The omer was an offering of barley. It's an amount of barley, an omer amount of barley that's brought to the Kohen on the second day of the holiday of Passover. From that day, you count 7 weeks. They shall be complete. In other words, 7 full weeks, i.e. 49 days. Verse 16, you shall count until the day after the 7th week, namely the 50th day, on which you shall bring a new meal offering to God. So you bring one omer offering on day 2 of Passover. 50 days later, you bring a new meal offering to God, and that is the holiday of Shavuot, the festival of the tabernacle. Text 1c. We continue. From your dwelling places, you shall bring bread. Set aside 2 loaves made from 2/10 of an ephah. That's an amount. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked, leavened, the first offering to God. Basically, on the holiday of Shavuot, although it's not mentioned by name, kind of gets a little bit of a, like a bit of a brief mention here. I mean, it's certainly mentioned vis-a-vis the offerings that you bring, but it's not like This is Shavuot. Don't forget the cheesecake. It doesn't say that. Nonetheless, it talks about the offerings that are brought on that day. And we bring the shtei halechem, the 2 loaves made from, as we saw there, from the flour, baked leavened, as opposed to Passover. It's kind of the bookend to Passover. Passover was non-leavened. And then 7 weeks later, plus a day, is when you bring the offering of the leavened offering, which is on Shavuot. And associate with the bread, verse 18, you shall bring 7 unblemished lambs in the first year, 1 young bull, 2 rams. These shall be a burnt offering to God, along with their meal offerings and libations, fire offering with the spirit of satisfaction to God. Let's continue. You shall offer up 1 he-goat as a sin offering and 2 lambs in the first year as a peace offering. And the Kohen shall wave them in conjunction with the first offering bread as a waving before God, along with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to God and belong to the Kohen. All of that is for the holiday of Shavuot. Oh, continue in the next page. And you shall designate on this very day a holy occasion. It shall be for you. You shall not perform any work of labor. It's a holiday. It's not just the day that you bring sacrifices. It's a holiday. We know it as Shavuot. This is an eternal statute in all your dwelling places throughout your generations, not only in Israel, because we said when you go to the Holy Land, do this. But then it clarifies not only in Israel, not only with temple times, we still observe the holiday, at least, not the sacrifice, but the holiday to this very day. Text 1D. The Torah continues. The very next verse, we ended with verse 21. This is now verse 22. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly remove the corner of your field during your harvesting. And you shall not gather up the gleanings of your harvest. Rather, you shall leave these for the poor person and for the stranger. I am God. Now, let's note this. The Torah talks about now the agricultural obligations. If you owned a farm, if you had a field. In ancient Israel, you had to leave the corner. You had to leave the gleanings, the things that fell. Don't pick it up. We know this as peah. Peah means corners, like, payas. Peah means don't collect, don't harvest all of the food. You got to leave some of the food in the field for those that need, those that are hungry. And likewise, if you drop something, that's called leket. If you drop something, the gleanings that fell, you don't pick them up. Anything that fell, you leave for those that need. Leave for the poor person and for the stranger, folks that don't have family, etc. I am God. All right, we continue. Text 1E. The very next verse continues with the holidays. And God spoke to Moses saying, verse 23, verse 24, God speak to the children of Israel saying, you remember what the next holiday is after Shavuot? We talked about it, right? What is it?
Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah. In the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, Rosh Hashanah, first day of Tishrei. It shall be a Sabbath for you, a remembrance of Israel through the shofar blast, a holy occasion. Great. Rosh Hashanah, shofar blast. 25, you shall not perform any work of labor. You shall offer up a fire offering to God. The very next verse, and God spoke to Moses saying, but on the 10th of the 7th month, you know what that is, right? It's a day of atonement, Yom Kippur. It shall be a holy occasion for you. You shall afflict yourselves. That means don't eat. You shall offer up a fire offering to God. Skip a few verses, and God spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel saying, on the 15th day of the 7th month is festival of Sukkot, a 7-day period to God, and I'm going to insert ... because the Torah continues after verse 34 to talk about all of the offerings that are brought on Sukkot, and Sukkot has an elaborate series of offerings because each day the number of bulls offered changes. It begins with 14 on day 1, 13 on day 2, 12 on day 3, 11 on day 4, etc., until you get to the 7th and final day of the holiday. And then it talks about Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day of the holiday, which we call Shmini Atzeret / Simchat Torah, and it talks about the offerings there. And this is how the second half of our Torah portion reads. When you're sitting in synagogue and shul and you hear it read, you're kind of like, all right, holidays, offerings, let's get to the Kiddush. I mean, most people are in that space. Who am I to say most people? I am in that space, right? I'm kidding, whatever. So like, right, where it's like, okay, holidays, Passover, counting the Emor, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. Got it. We don't have a temple. We're not going to bring this anyway. So it's good to hear the holidays, but we know them. We got a calendar. We're set.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. However, did you notice an anomaly? Yes.
It totally repeated a line from last time.
Which line?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Good. You're saying it's repeating a line? No, I dropped almost. What's another weird thing that we notice? In middle of the holidays, discussing the sacrifices, something's out of place. What is it? Do you remember which mitzvah is out of place?
Paya.
Yeah, the Peah and Leket, which is the one that you're recalling. Take a look once again, if you recall, text 1D. And remember, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, they're all lined up. I mean, we can have a chumash and look at it from the original without 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, but this is verse by verse. And in text 1D, the Torah says, we're going to take a pause in talking about the holidays, and instead, we're going to talk about the laws of harvesting your field and owning a field in ancient Israel, and the laws of called matanot aniyim, the gifts to the poor, the agricultural gifts to the poor. And this is something that Rashi deals with.
Is that not just though because Sukkot falls during the harvest season?
This is before Sukkot. Remember where text 1D is. This is after Passover, after the bringing of the Omer, after Shavuot. That's when this appears. And then after this comes Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of this conversation.
It's
Little interesting, little strange.
It just sort of hints to the great grandmother of David HaMelech, because it's after Shavuot.
Oh, I like that. Ruth, right? Ruth, I love it. Very good, right? Ruth meets her husband, Boaz, or Boaz sees Ruth as she's picking the gleanings from the field associated with the birth of King David on Shavuot. I love it. I wonder if that's a thing. It's not what Rashi says, but it's an interesting, connection. By the way, what was Boaz like before he met Ruth? Ruthless.
That joke.
It's a dad joke and a rabbi joke together, which makes it way worse.
Doesn't that make it a priest joke?
That I don't even know what that does. That makes it really, I apologize in advance. I mean, after the fact, actually. It's not advanced anymore. Ruthless. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. So now let's read Rashi. Oh, and as we're going to read Rashi, just so you know the structure for the rest. So we did the intro, we did the verses, right? We noticed, and I pointed out an anomaly. And Meir also pointed out something which we're going to address as well. We're going to read Rashi's comment on that verse about the mitzvah of Peah and Leket, the agricultural, you got to leave the food in the field for those that are hungry. We'll read Rashi. We'll ask a few questions on Rashi. We're going to resolve Rashi ultimately, and then walk away with hopefully a powerful life message. All right, so let's read Rashi. David, I'll ask you to please read. This should be text number 2.
When you reap, the scripture repeats this once again, so that one who disobeys transgresses 2 negative commandments. Rabbi Avertimos, the son of Rabbi Yosef, says, why does scripture place this passage in the middle of the laws regarding the festivals, with Passover and Shavuot on one side, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot on the other? To teach you that whoever gives leket, gleanings, shitcha, forgotten sheaves, and peah, the corners, to the poor in the appropriate manner is deemed as if he had built the holy temple and offered up his sacrifices within it.
Thank you. So Rashi, let's stay on this page. So I'm going to keep this page up online. So let's focus here, because it's really important that we understand and try to make sense of this Rashi. This is going to be the key to this class. So Rashi seems to say 2 different things. Rashi seems to address 2 different questions. And the truth is, it's my question and Meira's question. Rashi seems to address both. The first one he addresses is Meira's question. What's the question? The Torah says here, when you reap, and it means, etc., which means, when you reap your field, make sure not to take everything, leave some stuff behind for the poor and for the hungry, etc. And so the first question is, the unspoken question is, why the repetition? And Rashi explains, scripture repeats this again, to make it a double violation if you fail to do so. You know, like even in US law, a person can commit one crime but have like two different charges, or have violated two things. So the fact that the Torah says, don't take all the food, you got to leave some food behind, that means it says it twice, so that if somebody violates that, they got two felonies, or I don't know if the right word is felony, but they got two violations.
So if we have the Aseres Adivros twice in the Torah, does that mean
That's a very good question.
that you violated twice when you murdered
So it's a
someone?
very, very good question. My understanding is that the repetition of the Ten Commandments is not it's not necessarily like a second repeat. It was the same. It's Shamar v'Zachar v'Dibarach. It was almost like two versions of the same commandment, but it's a good question. We should probably look it up before I say anything definitive. My understanding is that it's kind of like one iteration that's like brought twice, whereas this would be
Well, I
two.
guess the second one is in a summary of the first 4 books. No,
Yeah, the second one is in
Yeah,
the summary,
second
and
one
it's
is
kind of
in-
Moses saying, this is what God says, as opposed to saying like, I mean, it is repeating it, but it's a bit of a different, it's more of like, this is what was said. And even the distinctions there, we say it's all from the original thing that kind of expressed itself in two different ways, but it's all kind of one core thing. So that's what I would guess, but I can't say that for sure. It's a good question. Now so Rashi first deals with the repetition, and he says, why the repetition? To hit you with a double felony, a double whammy. If you don't, make sure to leave those corners, because if you don't, 2 violations. Okay, that's one point. Second point Rashi addresses is another question. Why does Scripture place this passage in middle of the holidays? I mean, this is a law regarding fields. This is an agricultural law. This is, if you're a farmer, this is how to farm in a kosher halachic Jewish manner. Great. Why smack dab in the middle of the holidays? To which Rabbi Avrodimos, the son of Rabbi Yosef, sounds like a midrashic source, says, oh, it's to tell you, kind of like a homily, right? This is like a drash, that if you, whoever follows through with this mandate to leave food for the poor, it's like they built a temple and offered these very sacrifices. Okay, that does not seem like pshat to me, right? That doesn't seem like the simple meaning of the verse. But Rashi, who is the one who deals with the simple meaning of the verses of Scripture, Rashi brings it, and so that itself is curious. And this is Rashi. So I want to ask a few questions. You may have questions. I want to ask a few questions that I think are what the first question I'm going to ask is new. And we've asked a lot of questions at Rashi. This is a new, stylistically, this is a new type of question. Typically, Rashi doesn't share 2 points under the same header. Typically, Rashi will separate out 2 points in 2 different Rashis. Okay, let me explain what I mean. Rashi always quotes some words from the verse, and then he comments, quotes words, comments. That's how he does it, right? He cites, comments, cites, comments. If Rashi has 2 points to make, he'll typically cite, he'll give 2 different headers. Header 1, explanation 1. Header 2, explanation 2. Rashi seems in this what we just read seems to be addressing 2 different things. Why is this law repeated? And also, why is this law found here in the middle of the holidays? If it's an agricultural law, it's a farming law. And Rashi gives seemingly 2 different answers. One about the double violation, and one about it's like you brought sacrifices on the, it's like you brought sacrifices. Makesha, what's the connection? What Rashi's lumping things together? He's like, oh, throw a bunch of ideas in the, doesn't do that. Rashi gives everything its own space. You learn one thing at a time, not 2 things together. He doesn't co-join things. He doesn't smush it together into one chalent. So why is Rashi making a chalent here? Why is it repeated to hit you with 2 violations? Why is it in the middle of the sacrifices? Because if you do it, it's like if you observe the commandment, it's like you offered sacrifices. Give me 2 different headers. Give me 2 different Rashis. Understand the question? It's question number 1. Question number 2. Question number 2. Why does Rashi quote the name of the rabbi? Rabbi, what is it? Averdimos. It's very interesting because I don't recall Rabbi ever, like he's not one of the oft quoted, not like Rabbi Akiva. He's definitely quoted. Clearly here he's quoted. But why does Rashi quote the name of the rabbi who says this? Typically, Rashi will just give the answer. I mean, give the explanation. I mean, look at the first part of Rashi. Scripture repeats this once again, so that one who disobeys transgresses 2 negative commandments. He doesn't quote who said that. Someone said that.
Maybe that's his own interpretation.
Typically not. Typically, he's typically pulling it from somewhere. And if I had done the research, I could tell you no, and you know who he pulled it from, but I didn't. So my bet is, and it's a pretty safe assumption, that he took that from somewhere, and he didn't quote that rabbi. So why by the second item does he quote the name of the rabbi? Now we know the answer. Well, we don't know the answer. We know what that means. It's not a gotcha question. This is like a question that opens up, gets us thinking. It's a get you thinking question. Whenever Rashi cites the name of the rabbi, you know one thing. Let's look at all the things that this rabbi said. Let's look at his life and times, his bio, and his collection of Torah insights, because something about this man is going to give us additional insight into this specific teaching over here. So now this is great. We have a clue in our investigation. He quoted a name. Now we're on the case. So we're going to explore that. There's another question, but I think I'm going to skip the third question. Let's stick with these 2 questions. Again, question number 1, why does Rashi lump 2 ideas in one Rashi? He should separate it out like usual. And then number 2, why does Rashi put the name of the rabbi who shared the teaching? Not that it's not true, but typically, not that it's not accurate, it is, but Rashi doesn't typically do that. So to understand this, we're going to embark on a journey to better understand what was really bothering Rashi. So gesund. And I will tell you, although we might think that what's bothering Rashi is like his second question, like why would you put a law about a farming law in middle of the holiday conversation? In truth, that's not really a huge question, and I'll tell you why. And I wonder if anybody picked up on this. Did you notice in any of the prior texts that I read earlier, before the field law, where it mentioned about harvesting? Did you notice that? Okay, I'm giving you clues what to look for. Okay, turn back, and tell me, do you recall, or can you find where the Torah talks about harvesting? Which holiday?
1D, text 1D.
Hold on. 1D is talking about harvesting, correct? But I'm saying before 1D. Which text talks about harvesting, huh? Oh, now we got it. Look at this. Text 1B, it was lying in plain sight. Look at this one. God spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel, when you come to the land which I am giving you and you reap its harvest. We're talking about reaping harvest, bring the Emor offering. Then we have another reaping that happens, right? On Shavuot, text 1C. Again, you're bringing the first offering to God from the field. Now you're bringing 2 loaves of bread, obviously from flour, from the field. Verse 20. The Kohen shall wave them in conjunction with the first offering bread. Again, these are all things. These are not animals. These are offerings that are coming from the field. Comes along the Torah and says, you're harvesting, you're reaping, you're pulling out food from your field. Good. Don't forget. You got to know when you harvest your field, FYI, PSA, public service announcement, you got some rules and regulations about how you harvest your field. Are you with me on this? So the placement question is not immediately a question. Again, let me cycle through this. We might have thought that the first question is, why are you talking about field laws in the middle of the holidays? Holiday offerings. Well, that has an answer. What's the answer? Because we just, right before that was Omer, Sfirat HaOmer, and Shavuot, all about the field, all about the harvest of the field. You harvest barley, you bring it. You harvest wheat, you bring it. If we're talking about harvesting, FYI to the farmer, don't harvest everything.
Is
What-
Passover an agricultural holiday, though?
Not really.
So why is the whole concept of bringing an Emor?
Oh, 1 second. Passover. No, it is. Yes, it is. Passover is part of the it's part of this it's the first harvest that comes up. The first of the first barley. Yeah, you cut the first of the barley on the second day of Passover. Correct. By the way, anything before that, from after Passover until the offering of Shavuot, anything that grew is called chadash. You can't eat it. There's like law specific until you bring that offering on Shavuot of the flour. You couldn't eat anything that grew. It was kind of like it grew. You couldn't harvest and eat it yet. But that's an aside. But yeah,
That's when the wheat harvest is, right?
yes, or barley first and then
Well,
wheat.
barley is first.
Barley is
then
first and
the
then wheat.
wheat
That
is
time,
with
this
it.
time of year, exactly. I mean, I'm not a farmer, but I don't mind like pretending to be one. But yeah, this is exactly the time of year. Yeah.
Quick side note, I had a Parshat class with Shifra Sharpstein today.
Yes.
And she talked about how Pesach is the barley harvest and barley was mostly given to animals as
Mhm.
animal feeds. So over the course of the 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuos, when we're doing the Omer and we're refining ourselves, we're also like refining our animal soul, so that by the time of Shavuos, we're bringing the wheat bread sacrifices, we've, become
Yeah.
people.
Beautiful. I'm going to share that. Darcy just shared that the barley harvest is connected, and the barley offering is connected with Passover. The wheat harvest and offering is connected with Shavuot 7 weeks later. And barley is animal food, and wheat is human food. And the goal is to go from a behema to a mensch, to go from an animal to a human. What does that mean? It means that we're supposed to work on our character. God took us out of Egypt. Were we ready to go? Were we like, upstanding? No, we were 49 levels of impurity. The goal is to build ourselves up in our inner character to become more of a mensch. Excellent. Beautiful. So yeah, it's associated with the harvest. Both are associated with the harvest.
So we ought to be able to eat barley on Pesach then.
You would think. You would think. Or maybe it's exclusive to the God.
Behema.
Is there barley matzah? Is that a thing? Do they make matzah out of barley?
Never
No.
seen it or heard of
No.
it.
If barley's not an acceptable grain, why would it be?
I mean, even wheat, you can, as long as it's made in a way that doesn't become leaven. Anyway, I don't know. I'll tell you this, I barley ate matzah this year,
Yeah, joking with
this
you.
Passover.
I'm still eating.
You're digging deeper.
I'm barley holding on with the string. Okay, so here we go. Let's get back in. So, good. So the first question that we might have thought is, who's talking about field law in middle of the holidays? Well, that we understand, because in the context of the holidays, we're talking about harvesting your field and bringing the first of the grains. Great. So the Torah says, FYI, don't cut everything down. You're bringing it to the temple. Don't cut everything down for yourself. Make sure to leave some for those that need. What bothers Rashi initially is not that. What's bothering Rashi is something else. As again, Meira pointed out earlier, this law for the farmer about leaving parts of the field for the poor and the hungry, that law, we just said it last week. Last week's Torah portion, Kedoshim. That's the question. It's not a location question. It's a repetition question. Oh, you're talking about the harvest. FYI, you got to leave some of your You just told me that like a few chapters ago. You don't need to tell that to me again. That's what's bothering Rashi. Let's take a look at where it says it last week. I'm glad you asked. Scott, if you don't mind, please read. This is going to be text number 3. This is from last week. Text 3.
When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not fully reap the corner of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you collect the fallen individual grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am God.
Thank you. Pretty much the same thing, right? Notice the source, Leviticus 19. I mean, we're in Leviticus 23 today, just FYI. This is Leviticus 19, 4 chapters earlier. It says the same thing. It even adds more. Here you got a vineyard and grapes, right? Now we got variety. It's not just a field and wheat or barley. This is now a vineyard. It's a little bit more robust. And so the first question that's bothering Rashi is the most obvious question. You know, we just heard in the Torah last week, we just read 4 chapters earlier about the obligations of a farmer to make sure to leave food for the poor and the hungry. And now we're talking about the holidays, the Jewish holidays, and the offerings that were brought on the holidays. This fire offering and this animal and that animal, great. And mitamo in the middle of it, you know, the Torah trots out, by the way, if you're a farmer, make sure not to cut the corners of the field.
Well,
I already know that.
one is the fruit of the vine and the other has to do with grains.
No, but the first part of text 3 is the grains also. So we had that last week also. We had both. We got a double whammy last week.
Where does it say it's grains?
Well, that's how we understand the first part. The first verse 9 is about the grains, verse 10 is about the vineyard. So what's going on here? So that's the first question that's bothering Rashi. Why the repetition? To which Rashi, we already know Rashi's answer. Rashi says, why is it repeated? It's repeated in order to hit the violator with 2 infractions, right? If we just had last week's, warning, it would be 1 infraction. Here the Torah gives 2 infractions. Now, by the way, we might just take a half a step back and ask on Rashi's question, well, why would the Torah want to hit you with 2 infractions? I think that answer is obvious. Because the Torah is trying to impress upon us how important this is. It's not optional to make sure that people in town, people in the community have what to eat. That's not an option. It's an obligation. Imagine if we applied, if you think about it, Mincha's in the main sanctuary, down the hall, then to the left, you'll see it. Chemism. All right, Zagazant. So think about this. Imagine, the parallel would be like this. Imagine if the Torah was written in 2025, it would say something like this. You own a restaurant, right? X amount of percentage of the food that you make, right? You can't sell it. It has to go to the poor. Imagine if in every city, 5%, 2% of the food made had to go to those that didn't have. No one would go hungry. No one would go hungry. Everyone would have what to eat. This is what the Torah is doing. And it's so important, says Rashi. We have it twice. But then Rashi says, but hold on, whoa, one second. Okay, I hear you. Rashi says, but now I have a follow-up question. And this is why it's under the same Rashi header, because one question leads to the next. Rashi says like this. If this were the first time we were encountering this law, I could see why you would want to, quickly jump in. The first time you mentioned harvesting in whatever context, even in the context of a holiday and an offering, Omer offering, you're going to harvest your field. Shavuot, you're going to harvest. Oh, about the harvest. Oh, quickly, let me tell you something quickly about that. But that's if it was the first time. We already had it last week. There's no reason to jump in and interrupt the holiday conversation. Are you with me on this train of thought? I'm hoping everyone's staying with me. If, I'm going to do it once again. If the Torah had never told us about this mitzvah, if we never knew the concept of payout, we never knew that you have to leave any. I didn't know that. And then the Torah says there's going to come a holiday of Passover, second day of Passover. You're going to harvest your field and bring some of the barley to the temple. Then immediately the Torah might say, by the way, hold on, I just said the word harvest. I need you to know that when you harvest your field, don't go all the way. The Torah might have to jump in and get it while it's fresh. But we already had it 4 chapters ago. There's no urgency. Why interrupt? What a beautiful holiday conversation. There's no urgency. Why are you jumping in? You understand? That's Rashi's next question. And it follows from the first answer. The first question is, I know, we're not giving the answer. You already know the answer. We already read it, right? To the second question. But let's cycle this again. One more time. Some dritten, right? Third time. Let's go. The first question that's bothering Rashi is, why the repetition? We had this last week. To that, Rashi answers, we're going to hit you twice. But if this is only hitting you twice, then why the urgency to push it in over here? Why are we shoving it in? Wait till the holidays are over. You want to do a second mention? Sure, do it wherever. Why throw it in? Why interject in the middle of the holidays? Which Rashi answers, Rabbi what is it? What is it? Averdimos? He says, oh, there's a beautiful idea. If you give these gifts to the poor and the hungry, it's like you built a temple and offered a sacrifice to God. That's how important it is. Yeah, don't you want to do it now? It's like you're building a temple for God. It's like you're offering a sacrifice to God. That's how important it is. That's why it's pushed in right smack dab in the middle of holidays. We have Passover, Omer, and Shavuot on the one side, right? Cage match, Passover, Omer, Shavuot. In the middle of it, you have the agricultural law of the field, and then after that, you have three more. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. Sandwiched in the middle is this law. Why sandwiched in the middle? It's not urgent. We already read about it last week. You want to repeat it? Repeat it somewhere else. Why is it right here put stuffed right in? The answer is very simple. Not very simple. The answer is on a homiletical level. It's because to teach us that indeed this mitzvah is like bringing a sacrifice. Make sense? Yeah? So let's understand how we answer the question. My question was, if there's two different issues that Rashi is dealing with, have two separate Rashis. Now we know it's not two separate issues. It's a flow from one to the other. You start with one question, you answer the first question. You start with a question, you answer the question, but that opens up the door to a second question. So Rashi has to deal with that second question right away under the same Rashi, and then he answers it. And that is the arc and the flow of Rashi. But now we're left with a question. Our second question, why does Rashi quote the name of the author of this teaching? That if you leave these gifts to the poor, then it's like you brought an offering. Why does Rashi feel the need to quote the name of the rabbi who teaches this? And for this, we need to go a little bit deeper into the conversation. And what we're going to do now for the next 10 minutes is explore the difference between tzedakah and these agricultural gifts. Because as you may have noticed, the teaching of Rabbi Averdimos says only if you give these agricultural gifts, it's like you built a temple and offered the sacrifice. He doesn't say if you give tzedakah, it's like the same thing. There's a difference between tzedakah, charity, and these gifts that are giving gifts, these agricultural gifts to the poor. The question is, what's the difference? So let's explore that right now.
Is the difference in the meaning of the word
Tzedakah?
justice?
Okay, good. I mean that it's good. Maybe we can fit it in. I'm reserving my thoughts on that. Now let's take a look.
Can I ask a quick question? This is for poor people of any nationality, right? Or just Jews?
It says the poor. I don't know. Let's look at the original. Let's look at the original thing.
And the stranger.
The poor and the
right.
stranger, the translation of stranger of lager. So it means typically the proselyte. Yeah. Not to say that it doesn't mean that, but I don't know that I can answer definitively either way on that. Okay, now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look at a teaching about the value. One second, and we're gonna skip some text that we already read, that we are already covered outside. All right, 4, 5a, 5b, text number 6. Okay, let's do text 6. Text 6 is going to speak about the value of tzedakah in general, and then we're going to explain how even within tzedakah and how amazing that mitzvah is, the gifts, the agricultural gifts, like leaving the corners of the field for the poor, is at an even greater level, and we're going to explain that. But let's start with the regular. Let's start with standard tzedakah and explaining why giving charity on any level is the most amazing mitzvah. Text number 6. Who are we up to? I don't remember. Who read last? You read last? Oh, Dasi, please take it away.
Sages spoke highly of the mitzvah of charity, saying that it is equal to all the mitzvot combined. The reason is that tzedakah is the ultimate mitzvah of action, surpassing all others. Every mitzvah serves to elevate the animal soul to Hashem. No mitzvah accomplishes this as completely as tzedakah. With most mitzvot, only one aspect of a person's vital energy is engaged, and only at the moment of performing the mitzvah. But when a person gives charity from their earnings, they are offering God the sum total of their effort. Every ounce of strength and time invested in earning that money is now elevated in a single act of giving.
I feel. Oh, continue. Sorry.
Even someone who didn't personally toil for the money is still giving away something that could have sustained their own physical life. By parting with it for the sake of a mitzvah, they are, in a very real way, offering their very life to God.
Okay, that is very powerful. Let me explain it, and I'm going to just say it in my own words. But I'm not adding anything to the text. I'm just saying it in my own words. Okay, you ready? Somebody puts on tefillin. What energy are they expending? The energy that it takes to wrap tefillin on their arm. When somebody lights Shabbat candles, what energy are they expending? The energy that it takes to strike a match and light it. When one gives tzedakah, what energy are they expending? What, just the handing over? No. How'd you get that money?
They worked.
You worked. Oh, you didn't just work. You went to school, and then you got a job, and then you worked, and you worked hard, and you put in effort, and at the end of all of that, you earned money, and then you chose to give it to someone or to give it to a cause, right? A good, worthy cause, a person in need. You chose to give it away with free choice. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya says, you know what just happened when you did that? When you gave tzedakah? You took not just a small part of your life energy. Did you use in a mitzvah? You gave the totality of your energy to a mitzvah. You channeled your very essence and being of your soul and of your, not only your godly soul, but your physical, your animal soul, your natural soul, your vitalizing soul. You gave that. You gave that over as a gift, a mitzvah. You gave that over to God or to God's will. And that's why tzedakah is equal to all of the other mitzvahs combined. You can take a scale spiritually. You put tzedakah on one side, all of the other mitzvahs on the other side. Tzedakah is as valuable, if not more, than everything else. Tzedakah tatzel mimaves, the Gemara, the Talmud says. Tzedakah saves from death, the famous story of Rabbi Akiva's daughter. Rabbi Akiva was told by, I don't know, there was like a straw, whatever, however he heard that his daughter was going to die on the night of her wedding. Well, he never told her this because, I don't know, that would be a downer. And she gets married. And the night of her wedding, the Talmud says, she takes the pins out of her hair back in her room. She takes the pins. You know the pins? Yeah. I didn't have pins in my hair when I got married, right? But my wife did, right? Pins in the hair. She took the pin and she stuck it in the wall behind her. Think of the wall as like a cork board, whatever it was. She stuck it. That's what they did. They didn't have like fancy drawers with you put a pin in a little lucite situation. I didn't have that. She stuck the pin in the wall. Little did she know, unbeknownst to her, there was a poisonous snake slithering up by the back of the bed. Yeah, the wall/headboard. And she pierced in the morning when it was bright. This is before electricity, right? 2,000 years ago. It's been a while, right? It's been a minute since the story happened. She looks behind her. She sees the pin straight through the snake. She tells her father. Well, first of all, her father sees her and it's like, oh, you're alive. That's cool. I mean, I'm paraphrasing the story, right? What happened?
Glad to see you.
Glad to see you. Nice to see you at breakfast. Let me make another place. No, I'm kidding. That would be horrible. So she tells him the story. He says, what happened at the wedding? She says, I saw somebody walk in, somebody just came in, not invited, but somebody who came in was hungry, didn't have a spot. So I gave this person my meal at the wedding. Imagine everyone gets, served dinner. She takes her plate and gives it to the guy. The kala, the bride, gives it to this guy who just walked in off the streets. Rabbi Akiva said, tzedakah tatzel mimavis. Tzedakah saves a person from literal death. This is tzedakah. But you know what? Within the realm of tzedakah, these agricultural gifts, on some level, were even greater than this greatest of all mitzvahs. How so? Ready? I'm going to break it down. When it comes to tzedakah, you get to determine when to give, who to give, and how much to give. When it comes to the agricultural mitzvahs, that is pretty much out of your hands. God dictates, leave the corner of the field, and the Talmud defines what that amount is. If anything drops, you don't pick it up. And if you forgot to take something, you don't go back to get it. That's it. In other words, the gifts that you're giving are not on your terms. When it comes to tzedakah, you determine how, when, who, what, where, when you're going to give. When it comes to these agricultural gifts, God determines. And we know, as the Maharal HaPrague says in one of the texts, it's a very long text, I don't know that we're going to read it, I'll paraphrase it outside. The Maharal HaPrague says, we know that when you have two mitzvahs, one is a mitzvah that you are determining, one is a mitzvah that you've been determined to do in a certain meaning. One is a commandment that you have, and one is, they're both commandments, but one, you're being told how to do it. The other one, you have the volition to decide how to do it. The one that is more micromanaged from on high is actually the greater mitzvah. He likens it to someone who builds the king's palace versus the one who builds the king's garden, right? Which is more precious to the king? Probably his house. He loves the garden, but he really needs a bedroom, right? It's like there's the fluff on top, and then there's the core. So the agricultural, known as matanot aniyim, the gifts to the poor from the food from the field, that is even within the realm of tzedakah, the general chesed realm of tzedakah. That's even a higher level of giving because it's not on your terms. Furthermore, we also have another idea. The other idea is, I'm going to pull up these texts so you can see at least what I'm talking about. So Maharal is text 7. I just paraphrased it. It's a very long reading. We're not going to read it inside. Furthermore, text number 8, to paraphrase this, the Rebbe says it's possible that when it comes to money, standard tzedakah, maybe you didn't work so hard. Maybe you somehow you just got the money. When it comes to a field, you've definitely worked hard for it. No, fields don't just produce. Fields, it's not like someone gifted you that it's you had to put in the effort to plow, to sow, to plow, plant, water, and harvest, and therefore it's all by the sweat of your brow shall eat bread, and therefore there's something greater about that. And text 9 reminds us, as Maimonides, the third distinction between the two, standard tzedakah and these agricultural gifts to the poor, is that gifts to the poor provide no personal benefit to the owner because you don't even know who takes the food. Whereas the poor come and take against the owner's will, meaning whether or not you know about it, whether or not you want it, it doesn't make a difference. You have to leave it, and poor people take it. When it comes to tzedakah, you get the feedback. You get the opportunity to give it, to choose who you're giving it to, and get the nachas, get the pleasure, get the joy of watching the beneficiary enjoy the gift that you're giving. And so again, not tzedakah is the greatest of mitzvahs, but within the genre of tzedakah, these agricultural gifts are even a higher level. Now, take a look at text 11. Remember, we asked the question, why does Rashi quote Rabbi Avardimus? Take a look at text 11. Look at this. Das, are we up to you? Sorry, Maria, are we up to you? All right, take it away. Text 11, please.
Yehuda from Kutsi hid in a cave for 3 days because he wanted to find the reason why the needs of one town take precedence over the needs of another town. He came to Rabbi Yossi bar Chalafta, who asked him, "Where have you been?" He said, "I was hiding in a cave for 3 days because I wanted to find the reason why one town's needs take precedence over another." Rabbi Yossi called his son Rabbi Avardimus and said to him, "Answer, what is the reason why one town's needs take precedence over another?" Rabbi Avardimus said to him, "The verse in Numbers states, 'These 6 cities shall be, each town shall live, and only afterwards their surroundings around them.'"
So typically in Halach and Jewish law, we say give the poor of your town first, and then you can give to another town. Now, support locally, and then you can support globally. That's what this discussion is. It's driving me crazy, the grammatical mistake. It's not why one town's needs. It's one's town's needs. Meaning, why does your town take precedence over? It's apostrophe S that's missing twice. It's one's town's needs. I know it's like 3 S's in a row, but it means, why does your town take precedence over someone else's town? The answer is because it's your town. Which means, and this is what Rabbi Avardimus says, which means that Rabbi Avardimus was very calculated in tzedakah, right? You got to give first, You got to give to your people first, the people in your city first. Comes along this mitzvah, this agricultural mitzvah, and it says, by the way, this mitzvah is not going to be one that you're able to choose who to give it to, or that you feel good about who gets it, because you don't even know who gets it. You have to leave it in your field, and anybody can walk in and take it. You don't own the corners of your field. You don't own the stuff that fell. You don't own the stuff that you forgot. It's not yours. It belongs to everybody equally. It's a surrender that has to happen, or that's part of this process. And this tells us something incredible, and with this, we'll close it out. This reminds us that when it comes to mitzvahs, there's one thing about a mitzvah is about doing a good deed. Yeah, that's for sure. Every form of tzedakah is doing a good deed. But talk about a type of tzedakah, like the agricultural tzedakah, where there's a surrender, where you surrender to the point, like, I don't even get the nachas of knowing who's receiving it. I don't get the joy of determining who gets it. I don't even see the joy unless I set up a camera. I don't even get the joy of seeing who I helped. And still, I'm doing it, not for me, for the cause. This is why that Rabbi Avardima says that these gifts to the poor of the field are juxtaposed in middle, or put in middle of the holiday conversation, to teach us that if you do this, it's like you brought a sacrifice in the temple. You know why? Because a sacrifice in the temple also is not on your terms. I mean, some were. There could be like a offering that you decide to bring. But typically the offerings were, God says in the holidays, the holiday offerings, God says on this holiday, bring this animal. You want to bring a different animal? Sorry. This is what God is telling you what to do. And so there's two different types of tzedakah. There's a type of tzedakah that we choose, and then there's the type of tzedakah that's chosen for us. And so Rabbi Berdima says, although we might be more excited about the tzedakah that we choose, there's a value in also performing the tzedakah that's chosen for us. And in that space, we are truly offering a sacrifice to God, letting go, relinquishing control, and experiencing the surrender of doing what God wants purely because that's the right thing to do. And this becomes an overarching teaching and the takeaway of today. There's nothing wrong about feeling good in Judaism, about doing a mitzvah and feeling good about it. That's a good thing. But there are some opportunities that we have as we, in our Jewish experience, where it's not about us, where it's not about even feeling good about the good that we do. It's about simply doing the right thing for the sake of the right thing. And this, I think, is where transformation and personal transformation happens. Look, as we discussed, as Dasi mentioned, we're moving from animal to human. We're moving from barley to wheat. I mean, the only context I've had barley, I think, is in Shalent. So, I mean, there you go. Right. Oh, and mushroom barley soup. That is true. Mushroom barley soup, correct.
Beer.
Correct. By and large, humans eat wheat, right? We eat flour, typically from wheat. And so we're moving from an animal to a mensch. What does it mean? Animal is, the parallel here would be the self-interest, not knocking animals, just saying that would be the parallel here. The animal soul is very self-preservation oriented. Even in goodness, it's like, well, what do I get out of doing good? Right? Can I at least enjoy the good that I'm doing? And the answer is, of course. But sometimes we have an opportunity to do a mitzvah and there's no feedback and there's no pleasure and there's nothing in it for us. And in those cases, when we do it just for the cause, we extend ourselves and we grow as human beings and we grow in our Yiddishkeit and we grow in our menschlichkeit. May we all extend a little bit beyond our comfort zones. May we value goodness for goodness' sake and not for our own sake. And may we have the opportunity to both see the joy on people's faces when we help them and also know that even when we don't, the good has been done. Let us say, Amen. Let's pray for those that need, safety and security, for those that need healing. And please God, we should have only blessings in our lives as we continue this amazing journey called life. Thank you for joining. Questions, comments?
Yeah, text 12.
Text 12. All right, hold on. Let's put up. Text 12. Oh, I love text 12. Along these lines, I skipped it. I couldn't do another example. If you listen to this, No, not that.
Oh,
If the Torah says that if someone's animal is struggling, you should help them. But the Torah used the language, if the animal of your enemy is struggling. And the question is, why do I have to say the animal of your enemy is struggling? What about your friend? You don't have to help your friend? Of course you have to help your friend. Even your enemy, your enemy's donkey, you have to help. Doesn't mean mortal enemy.
But this isn't helping.
No, but listen.
It's helping.
No. The animal is collapsed. The animal's in pain in text 12. If one encounters a friend whose animal collapsed,
Friend.
no.
But if you keep reading, it's an animal of the enemy.
No. She's right. No, Toba's right.
The
And one
enemy
also encounters an enemy who needs assistance to load a burden onto his animal. You know what?
So you would choose
You're right.
the enemy?
You're right. You choose that. Why? Because you got to break yourself a little bit. Yeah,
So
of course you want to
what-
help your
what
friend.
if it's helping the enemy?
Doesn't mean
leads to
helping-
Something.
Doesn't mean
awful.
helping Hamas enemy.
Well, that's what I.
No,
think
I
they were
know.
thinking.
I was trying to clarify. It means the guy that like annoys you, the neighbor that annoys you, or whatever. The guy that goes to the other shul. Good. The guy that goes to the other shul. Correct. It's not. Well, that's what he's saying. So right. So if you have a choice, well, who should I help? Should I help my friend? Of course you want to help your friend. And you're going to feel good about that. And the other guy, you're not going to feel so good about. So the Torah says, you know what you should do? The halakha says, you know what you should do? Hopefully you're not going to feel good about, because you're just extending yourself. You're just pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
Okay.
If there's one thing that Judaism wants us to do, it's push ourselves beyond. David.
Is it just a translation issue? If we look at text 4,
Yeah.
Rabbi Arvadumas is the son of Rabbi Yossi. And if we look at text 11, Rabbi Yossi called his son Rabbi Arvadumas.
1 second. 1 second.
Huh?
Let me see.
They shouldn't use the word enemy.
I'm with
In
you.
one case, Rabbi Arvadumas is the son, in one case, it's the father.
No, he's the son in both.
Let's see. In text 4, Rabbi Averdimos is the son.
The other
Okay.
one, Rabbi Yossi calls his son.
Okay, you're right. You're right.
So in both cases, Rabbi Yossi is the father. Okay.
Right,
All right. Good.
right.
So Rabbi Yossi is the father. Rabbi Averdimos is the son. Okay.
Did have-
Yeah.
This is a very picky question, but when you look at the Hebrew of the repeated sentence in last Parsha, it had liksor, which is translated as fully reap. And in this Parsha, it's bikur tzecha, which is translated as not wholly reap.
Where are you? Which text?
1D versus 3, I guess.
1D versus 3.
1D versus
So let's start with 3 because I'm there. Which part?
Tet, it was where
But which word? Which word specifically?
liksor. That's a liksor,
Los liksor.
but then back on 1B.
Do not reap the corner. Do not consume. Meaning fully reap. To reap. Okay. Liksar means to cut. So don't completely cut. And what does it say in text 1D?
And then 1D, it's all of the same words, except instead of liksor, it's bikur tzecha.
Oh,
So I don't know if that's just like
I don't know.
my mind jumps to why is it different if it's a repeat?
You're right. Why is it different? Well, there are other differences. One adds the vineyard and one
Yeah.
doesn't. But even within this, you're right. The words are not identical.
It's in there also, but it's after the karma.
Yeah.
So it just took out.
There may be commentaries that explain that nuance. And listen, there's without a doubt, there's an explanation. I don't know that I know the explanation. I think it's a good question. Certainly it's a question that, is a good and analytical question. I don't have the answer. All right. So what do we do today? Just to kind of once again summarize, what we did today is we cited a bunch of verses. We looked at Rashi. We asked a few questions on Rashi. We explained the flow of Rashi. Then we got into why does he quote the name of the guy, Rabbi Averdimos. So we said basically to teach us the power of pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones. And so that's the message, right? We should extend, push ourselves a little bit. We're not looking to break ourselves too much, but push ourselves a little bit beyond our comfort zone. And with this, that's when the growth happens. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
According to Jerusalem Post, the earthquake was actually in Greece, but felt in Israel.
Got it. Any damage or everything's okay?
It was a 6.3 on gallon of Crete, I think, in Crete.
Got it. All right. Well, hopefully again, everybody is good and safe and sound and only blessed.
Actually, an earthquake felt in Atlanta.
I know.
yesterday.
Oh, on Shabbos.
Shabbos?
Leah said she felt that on Shabbos. Yeah. Shabbos morning. She's like, "Did you feel that?" I was walking around. I'm like, "I didn't feel it."
I totally didn't.
Must
but
have
it
taken a
was
step.
like,
Oh, really?
It started knocking. Her lance started knocking. Like she just heard a.
Yeah. No, Leia's like, "Did you like? Did you hit 9:05?"
Yeah.
Leia's like, "Do you feel the house
that
shake?"
was me just wearing my-
Very good. All right, Lila to everybody, Mom, Ramon,
Yeah, that
Ramon's
was.
grandmother. Good to see
I
you.
just wanted to say, so that's the where the expression comes: "Give till it hurts."
Give till it hurts. That's not only give till it hurts. Not only the amount. It's about
No,
kind
but
of
you should.
surrendering in the process. Yeah, like
Right.
surrender.
I
There's
know.
something beautiful about that.
Yeah.
David, Dr. David, Larry, Kay, Sam, Susan, Danny, Catherine, Howard, Aziel. Good to see you guys. Lila Tov. See you soon. Lots of blessings. God bless everyone.